Dr. Nardi here, and in this video we are going to talk about stress. Now, stress can be either a condition in the environment, meaning that the environment makes some kind of demands on you. There's some kind of threat, maybe some bereavement. There's some kind of condition that's external to you. However, stress can also be an internal condition. This could be your response to a stressful situation. You might feel stress, or your body reacts a certain way to a situation, and it's different for different people. It's also usually related to your perception of the situation. And again, it's all about how you cognitively interpret something. Often we talk about internal condition of stress. Now, whether we're talking about external or internal, stress overall is seen as a positive and adaptive, at least I should say in the short term. And in the short term, what happens is activation of the sympathetic nervous system. So your fight or flight system kicks on, and you'll see that there's hypothalamic control. So this hypothalamic control leads to increased heart rate, blood flow, and respiration. And this is all meant for you to survive, right? This is all meant for you to get through that stressful situation, and it's adaptive. We can also take a look at the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis. So the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis is responsible for two hormones in particular, epinephrine and norepinephrine. Now, these hormones have been involved with fight or flight. The other one that's released is cortisol. This hormone helps produce different psychological stress responses, increasing metabolic rate. It increases glucose availability, and it also increases the blood supply to the skeleton muscles. However, cortisol also provides some negative effects on the body if it's released for too long of a period of time. Brief stress actually increases activity in your immune system. And basically, you have different cells with different responsibilities, but overall you have these white blood cells, is the layman's term for them. And what they do is they help your body fight off infections. That's their whole goal. However, sometimes what happens is individuals develop an autoimmune disorder, and that's when your immune system attacks its own cells. Also note, while your body has different cells, think of your brain and spinal cord as being immune privileged, in the sense that most infections don't take hold because of your blood-brain barrier that protects your brain and spinal cord. I also want to mention that sometimes people develop autoimmune disorders, and basically what happens is your immune system kind of turns on itself. So your own body's cells attack themselves. For example, in multiple sclerosis, the immune system destroys myelin in the central nervous system. As you may have noted, that I told you in the beginning that stress can be adaptive and it can be good. However, chronic stress can interfere with memory. It can increase or decrease your appetite. It can lower your mood or deplete your energy. Again, it could lead to compromised immune functions. So again, stress in the long term is not a good thing. It affects your health overall. Interestingly enough, we can actually look at stress, and we can also talk about how it could potentially damage the brain. And an interesting thing that can happen is when chronic stress leads to cortisol-related damage to the hippocampus and gray matter. You might see this impact, for example, in individuals who served in combat in Iraq, and they've noticed that their hippocampal volume was reduced. Also of note is chronic stress can also alter your sleep cycles, and it could also lead to further illness. Social support has also been correlated with improved health outcomes, and introverted individuals, so this is a personality trait that's genetic, they noticed that introverted individuals are vulnerable to more stress. At least that's what some of the early research says. And one of the genes that's implicated in this is the NPY gene. This gene encodes the production of a neuropeptide Y. And this is known from its involvement in appetite, by the way. So if you think back to some earlier things we've talked about. So we notice as researchers that people with the variants of the gene that results in a low NPY production react to threat with exaggerated activity in the amygdala and in the ACC. Oxytocin not only promotes social bonding, but also reduces stress responses, such as a lower heart rate and a lower blood pressure. In individuals with a G allele of OXTR receptor have a higher tendency to seek social support, unlike those with an A allele. Pain, I would argue, is adaptive. Pain can obviously be a health problem as well, but for the most part, it's adaptive, and it helps us survive. And suffering from pain can lead to adaptive benefits. So it's adaptive. So if we touch a coffee that's too hot, or if our shoe is rubbing, we have a blister, it tells us, hey, there's something wrong. And we know this by if we look at people who have a congenital insensitivity to pain. And interestingly enough, these individuals, and by the way, it's a rare genetic disorder of the peripheral nervous system, they're unable to sense pain. So if they injure themselves repeatedly, they're not motivated to avoid that painful situation. And sometimes they could die from untreated condition. And the effects of pain is somewhat subjective and based on how it's viewed. And you could look at the various research related to childbirth, soldiers, and ritualized torture. Pain is somewhat subjective and is also usually described with an emotion. And if we look at the biological correlates with pain, we can look at the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC, and we can examine it for emotional pain. So like other body senses, pain has a somasensory cortex as its primary area of projection. Pain is a little bit unique due to its rich interconnections with the limbic system, particularly with the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC. Individuals who suffer from those pain and sensitive disorders and lobotomy patients can still feel emotional pain.